Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey or your spiritual journey, you are welcome here, and we're glad that you're with us this morning. Whether you are here for the first or the 100th time, it matters to us that we're all together today. I am Reverend Syltie. I use she, her pronouns, and it's my honor and pleasure and privilege to serve this congregation as minister, a congregation whose mission is to celebrate diversity, strive for justice, and inspire love. If you have been coming for a while, then you probably are on our mailing list, but if this is your first time or you've just started visiting or coming to worship with us, I think you'll have a piece of paper where you can write down your information. It's inside of this. If you would like to be in touch with the source of information about what's happening here, you can give us your contact information. Also inside of here is Joys and Sorrows piece of paper. If you have come today with a joy or a sorrow of personal transition or milestone, the sharing of which you believe will enrich our time together, then you are invited to pass that up during the offering plate. And if you would like a candle lit, we will light a candle for your joy or your sorrow. Following the service, everyone is invited to join us for coffee and conversation in the room right around the corner over there. There'll be coffee and goodies set out, and it's a time for us to be with one another and to have some delicious treats. There are a couple of announcements. One, if you're able, please stay and help Mary Lee, because we do not want Mary Lee to be alone setting up tables for next week's potluck. So Mary Lee, do you want to wave so people will see you? There you are. Is there anything else I need to say about that?
No.
Okay.
They can stay and help. It will be really appreciated.
It's really important. How about that? And Michael is by himself in the kitchen today. So if anyone is able to give him a hand after the service with the coffee cleanup or setup, please look for him. Okay, after the service. I believe that's everything. Is there any important announcement I've left out? Okay. Following music for centering, Laura will light our chalice. The words are written by Scott Taylor, but today they are dedicated to Barbara Goggins.
We light this chalice in honor of the history that holds and heals us, for the stories of heroism that inspire our own, for the faces of loved ones who have passed, in whose images we see our better selves. for reminders of those who paved the path on which we travel and blessed us with advantages we didn't earn all on our own. These memories do not live in the past. They carve the contours of our present. They throw themselves into our futures and lure us into building a better life for all. They are here today. Look, listen, let them in. May their light guide our way.
The wheel of the year has turned again. Once more, the Thanksgiving season has arrived. How shall we sing our song of gratitude now? For what shall we give thanks? For this moment, for friends near and far, for our breath, for love, for courage and clarity, for strength, for delight, for laughter, for beauty, for the tables around which we gather, for the food we enjoy with friends, seasoned with love and memory, for the sun and moon and stars in the sky, for the trees who have seen so much and still stand proud, stretching themselves in the sky, for the bright voices of children, for the wisdom of elders, for actions that bless the world, for hard work that makes a difference, for music and celebration, for generosity, for compassion, for endurance, for joy, for hope. For all these things, we give thanks as we worship together. These are words from the Reverend Laura Horton Ludwig. Inside of your folder, you also have words to our church covenant, and I invite you to rise, whether it be in body or in spirit, as we say these words together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. You may be seated. And this morning, our Story for All Ages is a video provided to us by the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee as we kick off Guest at Your Table once again for this holiday season. It's the time when we get the little boxes that look like this, and we put them on our table. And for every time we sit down, we imagine a guest at our table and put a little money in the box. And then at the end of the holiday season, the money will be collected. It's really, really nice if you count the money and then write a check. Otherwise, somebody will be sitting in the office counting all your pennies.
Erin's got her hand up.
Yes, Erin. Oh, Erin will be counting all the money. Okay. I thought maybe she needed to tell me something about the video. All right. So now we're going to hear about the people that the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee is going to support and help in the work that they are doing in the form of a story for all of us.
In today's story, I want to introduce you to 4 people who live in different parts of the world, but are all working with UUSC to help their communities have more justice and more resilience. Justice is another word for making things fair, and resilience means having the ability to heal after bad or hard things happen. Even though we don't have a chance to meet them in person, I want you to imagine they're coming over for dinner with you and your family. Think of them as a dinner guest, telling you an interesting story over a big plate of your favorite food. All over the country, Other kids, like you, are imagining the same dinner party and learning about the same people as part of a program called Guest at Your Table. The program is a chance to learn about 4 courageous people making a difference in their communities. This year, the 4 people we're going to meet are Axel, Myra, Maina, and Christian. First, I want to introduce you to Axel, who lives in Missouri. Axel works with the people who work in the food processing factories in the Midwestern United States. Many of the food service workers Axel works with are immigrants and refugees. Without them, we wouldn't have a lot of the food we find in our grocery stores. They feed our whole country. But even though they have this very important job, food service workers are often treated badly by the people that own the factories. They don't make much money, they are forced to work for a long time without breaks, and they had to work all through the COVID pandemic without many of the simple items that would have helped them be safer from the virus. To fight back against these unfair conditions, Axel is helping to organize people who work in these food processing factories so they can work together to get better working conditions for themselves and their communities. Next, I want to tell you about Myra, an activist who lives in the United States now, but she's originally from a country called Burma. Burma is also sometimes called Myanmar. When Myra was a little girl, her village was attacked by the country's military, and she was forced to flee her house along with her family. They weren't able to bring anything with them when they ran, and they all had to travel through the forest for many days before they reached the country next door. Eventually, Myra was able to move to the United States. Now that she is safe, Myra speaks out on behalf of the many people still in Burma who are facing the same military violence that Myra went through as a little girl. What Myra and her family went through was very scary, and making sure this kind of violence stops is very important to her. Myra is using her voice to call attention to what is happening to the people of Burma now. The third person I want to introduce you to is Maina Talia. Maina lives in Kiowa Island, which is part of the nation of Fiji in the South Pacific. Many countries in this part of the world are facing the impacts of climate change now. They are losing land to the ocean as sea levels rise. Kiowa Island has a higher elevation than many of its neighbors. This means that Kiowa Island will be a safer place to live as sea levels continue to rise. In order to prepare for welcoming new people to Kiowa Island, Maina and the members of the Kiowa Island Community Organization are working together to create community resilience by making plans and planting trees that will help the island withstand the forces of climate change. Lastly, I want to introduce you to Christian, who's from Nicaragua. In Nicaragua, many farmers have a hard time making a living because giant agricultural companies own the land, the farming equipment, and even the seeds. Christian and the other women in their farming cooperative are doing things a little bit differently. They care for their own land. They use traditional farming practices that do not harm the soil, and they plant a variety of different kinds of seeds that have been used by their communities for generations. This way of farming helps the land heal and helps women gain financial and social independence. Christian is helping her community build resilience from both climate change and violence against women with their feminist farming cooperative. I hope these stories were a chance to learn about the challenges this year's 4 guests are facing and how they are fighting for what is fair and for what is right, while also helping their communities become more resilient. Through Guest at Your Table, your congregation and other congregations around the country are helping provide the guests with the resources to do their work. Together, we can make a better and fairer world. Thank you.
And we have some children with us today who are going to help pass out the little boxes that you take home and put on your table. You just need 1 per family or household. And while they're passing out the boxes, our choir will gather up here for our opening hymn. Oh, Oh, well, she says, hold your hand up if you want one. Everybody wants one, right? One person out of the family hold your hand up. That will help the children know where to go. And thank you for helping us today.
We're going to sing We Gather Together, hymn number 349. If you'd like to stand and sing with your mask on, we'd love to have you join us. It's 349.
We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Of sorrow and gladness we find and we sing a hymn of praise to the light that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to thee, a true affirmation in joy and tribulation, when bound to give and care and hope, then we are free.
Oh, thank you so much. How absolutely fabulous to have our choir up here and to sing. I almost have chills, well, I think I do, for the memory of that song every Thanksgiving service and being together and singing. That's something to be truly grateful for, even if we do need to mask our germs. And it's also so comforting to be in a congregation where people are wearing their masks too. I appreciate that. Thank you. In this community of memory and hope, we seek to make real the dreams and the wishes that are the very best part of us. To that end, we contribute in many ways to the health of this congregation and to its life in the community, including our financial support for the fulfillment of our mission. So it is in the spirit of generosity and the desire to do that work that our offering for this morning will now be given and received. And remember, if you have a joy or a sorrow for which you would like a candle lit this morning, put that in the offering plate and send it up. The first candle I want to light this morning is for Barbara Goggins' special tall candle. It was such a shock to all of us that we lost her last week. She passed away. Barbara was an example of someone who truly lived her values, gave of herself in so many gracious ways. I experienced Barbara as intelligent, funny, compassionate, giving, and incredibly helpful. You'll laugh to hear that she left instructions that she wanted only a small ceremony and that no one was to speak for more than 1 minute.
That's awesome.
Now, I won't be here to control that because, as it turns out, Trista wants very badly to do that service. So she has arranged with the family to do that. So unfortunately, I won't be here to share that with you. It happens to be a Sunday when I can't, or a Saturday or a Sunday when I can't be in town if they keep the weekend that they have. If not, if it turns out to be that I can participate in officiating, I will definitely want to do that. So
Have they set a date yet?
it's still tentative, so I guess I'll just leave all that. But, you know, I've been in contact with the family and other people have also. Yes.
Can I offer, after this service, I would be glad to gather with people in the library just to have a time of being thoughtful about Barbara.
Absolutely. And I would be happy to be there with you.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. Other joys and sorrows. First of all, a candle for the emotional roller coaster of a week we've had with the news and all of the emotions that I imagine people are feeling. First, the verdict of Kyle Rittenhouse. The waiting also in hope that there will be justice for Ahmaud Arbery for that case, as well as relief of Julius Jones not facing execution, and still some sadness that it looks as if he will not have any opportunity for parole. So wherever you stand on those issues, those are strong emotional issues that are tied to the kind of justice work that we do as Unitarian Universalists. And I know there's a lot of other things happening in the news, but those were certainly on the top of my mind and heart this week and today. Erin Lavoie would like prayers for some personal struggles that she is going through. It is also a day to remember and honor the Transgender Day of Remembrance, an annual observance that honors the memory of the transgender people whose lives were lost in acts of anti-transgender violence this year. 2021 marks the most deadly year recorded of 45 transgender people, most of them Black or Latinx, were killed. So we light a candle for that. And we continue our work to try to change that and bring more justice to people. And then I have some here. Jack is having a rough time at work this week, juggling work blues, his frustration, and something about his retirement, his hope for future retirement.
Yeah.
I can't always read everything.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Lisa Rawson, Coco, my dog, had 4 healthy pups. They are 2 weeks old, so that's some happy news. Hugh Ed, for the PSC Theater musical comedy, Something Rotten performance today at 2. I think that's an announcement. Sorry about that. Well, that's an announcement, not a joy or a sorrow. How's that? Michael Newcomb. Actually, Michael wants to light a candle for Barbara, which we did, but let's light a candle for Michael, because I know that he's having a hard time with this, as are other people who are close to her. And for Lauren and Saldo, her sorrow is that her cousin, Nick Stern, age 36, died by suicide on November 7th. Always one of the saddest situations. He was a kind, good-hearted man who will be deeply missed. His death reminds us, she says, of how easy it can be to feel alone and hopeless, and the importance of reaching out for help and reaching out to check on loved ones and friends and neighbors. So Lauren, we hold you and all the people that knew Nick and loved him in our heart today. Also, a candle for our pianist, Denise, who was back in the hospital again day before yesterday, and last night she was sleeping there, having trouble breathing due to the repercussions from COVID. You know, she's really struggling to get her health back. As always, we light one last candle for all of those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts, yet unspoken. For just a moment, let us sit in silence as we reflect on these many joys and sorrows shared or still in our hearts. So as we enter this Thanksgiving season, the story of a November harvest feast between the Plymouth colony settlers and the Wampanoag Native Americans, that story is 400 years old this year. Last year was the 400th anniversary of the landing, and this is the 400th anniversary of the first harvest, that meal, the story that we grew up listening to. And the details of that story are sketchy at best, and in reality, more myth than truth. In a presentation for Unitarian Universalists called Decolonizing Thanksgiving, Nina Litton shared this message. Today, we Unitarian Universalists acknowledge that the colonizers who arrived on the Mayflower and the Arabella included our theological ancestors. These ancestors derived their assumption of supremacy from the Christian doctrine of discovery. When they got here, the Mayflower settlers helped themselves to the Wampanoag stores and larders. While celebrating their own survival, they were surprised by the sudden appearance of 90 Wampanoag men bearing gifts of venison. The Narragansett elder Dawn Dove wrote about this moment in her essay entitled, "In order to understand Thanksgiving, one must understand the sacredness of the gift." Dove frames the Wampanoag's gift, the men's gift of food, as a sacred act, an act that recognizes and thanks the Creator. She writes, "Our spirit and hope, the spirit and hope of our ancestors who first met the Europeans and all those generations since, have cried out in anguish because of the Europeans' lack of understanding of the sacredness of the gifts of Mother Earth. The Euro-American has continued to think of Mother Earth as a commodity. This sacred earth held the gifts of friendship, respect, honesty, equality, and justice. These gifts were not accepted by the new arrivals to this land in the 1600s. The Pilgrims had come looking for a new life, but because of their greed, they were not able to accept the greatest gift offered to them, the siblinghood of all humanity. Today, the larger American society must remember the gifts so that friendship, respect, equality, and justice may live in this land for all the people." So these are the words of Dawn Dove from the book Dawnland, Voices of an Anthology of Indigenous Writing from New England. It was published in 2014 by the University of Nebraska Press. Today, we UUs remember and honor these sacred gifts. Today, we listen to the wisdom of Native communities, and we journey together toward wholeness and healing in all of our relations within our communities, with all humanity, and with the sacred earth. So may it be. And our second hymn, Spirit of Life, and our choir will now grace us with singing again. And it's 123 in your hymnal if you want to sing along. Do we do it twice? Oh, she's on the piano. I was looking for more.
Spirit of life, come to me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Flow with the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hands, giving life the shape of justice. Bruised, hold me close, we set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thank you. Beautiful. So in this time of Thanksgiving, when we're going to be going home, some of us, we're having people from home come to us, I was going to talk about roots and wings as a lifelong process of freeing ourselves. The holidays that most involve family gatherings are upon us. And this may be the first time in 2 years for some people to gather with family. And I know there are some families that still will not be gathering in full for different reasons. At a lot of tables this year, there will be an empty chair. Sometimes it helps to put a picture of the person or a candle at that place. In my own circle of friends, I've heard stories of parents who are not allowing their own parents to be with the grandchildren because the grandparents have chosen not to be vaccinated. In other cases, grown children want to protect their parents because their young children are not vaccinated. So in addition to all the normal excitement or high emotion that may arise as families gather, we add to it the dynamics of life in the realm of a pandemic that is not through with us yet. That, plus the many different opinions shared in some families around politics, health, climate, breaking news stories, etc., the simply annoying could easily become the perfect storm. May that not be the case in your family. When we grow up, leave home, start new families, I just wondered what was up there. When we grow up and start new families and leave home, we often imagine ourselves as independent and free from many of the little things or even the big things that annoyed us or tripped us up with our parents or siblings as we were growing up. And if you're young and you're still growing up, then you'll have these times when you are aggravated with your parents or your siblings. In my 30-plus years working in churches, I've seen children grow up and leave home for college or work. I've seen our children marry and have children of their own and return. When that happens, everyone in the family is letting go in some way. But leaving home is rarely the clean break we would like it to be. Somehow, patterns of behavior that developed in our growing up years sneak into our suitcases and go with us, whether we want them to or not. They show up in ways we may not expect or even recognize as we form new relationships. relationships within our families, or in other groups like work or church. When the holidays come up, we might all be reminded of those patterns. When people decide to leave home and form a family unit of their own, they often negotiate how to celebrate holidays. Which traditions will they honor? With whom will they spend Thanksgiving and Christmas? Will they go home? If so, whose home? Or will they invite the extended family to their new home? Begin traditions of their own? And if they decide to do things differently, will they feel pressure, loss, or even guilt? For those of you who left home years ago and established lives of your own, if you are still able to go home, when you do go home for the holidays and sit down to dinner, do you feel like the adult in your own house? Or are you surprised how quickly you become the eldest, the middle child, or even the baby again? Do your other family members seem to forget that you are an adult who has managed quite well on your own for some years? Does your mom wait up for you when you go out to visit your friends? Does your big sister still correct your memory when you recall a story about past family events? If you are the parent sitting to dinner with your children and their children, do you sometimes find yourself treating your grandchildren like they are your own, giving advice that may not be welcomed or that their parents don't appreciate? If family gatherings stir up undesired yet familiar emotions, it's possibly triggering a pattern that sneaked into your suitcase when you left home all those many years ago. The degree to which our buttons get pushed in familiar ways has to do with patterns established in our family of origin or original family. Just because we move out doesn't mean we let go of decades of habits, reactions, and become emotionally neutral. The way we typically react to the behavior of others is kind of like the ivy that grows on my house. It clings and pulls me back, pulls us back. The desire to stay connected but not ensnared results from our need for two things: the need to be connected or close, and the need to be separate. The need to hold on and let go at the same time. These two needs are seemingly polar opposites existing in tension with one another, and it is in that tension that we live. Since this is the air we breathe, we can be oblivious to this tension. It might feel natural to either argue with our sister about our memory of an event or give in and let her think she's right. If after dinner we still feel annoyed and we are aware that our goal in reacting as we did was simply to keep harmony in the family, we may wish we knew a better way to manage the situation so that we felt better. If feelings of distance and isolation from loved ones trigger strong emotions in us, we may either give in to the demands of others or find ways to coerce others into being with us or just like us. Disagreement can feel unacceptable. If, on the other hand, we become anxious when we start to feel smothered or overprotected, unable to live out our own unique identity, we may intentionally distance ourselves or disengage. In either case, we are defining ourselves in relation to another person. We are not truly making decisions for ourselves. Our choices are driven more by our emotions than our thoughts. Something that we Unitarian Universalists think we're above, we're not. In the song that we just sang and listened to, we sing, "Roots hold me close, wings set me free." We need both roots and wings, and we need to find the balance between them. When we are born, we don't distinguish between our needs and the person who responds to those needs. Usually that's our mother. We grow into toddlers, and we find we can move away from mother. But we don't get too far away, and we go back frequently to make sure she's still there. Throughout our lives, we are venturing out into new places, exploring the world, testing our wings. When we are finally launched, we know what it means to feel free as a bird. We discover our own uniqueness, our own sense of self. Being separate allows us to experience this freedom, but separate is not the same thing as isolated. Being distinct from others does not imply being distant. We still need roots, a sense of belonging. We need to stay connected, even as we are separate and distinct. Without this separateness, we cannot know diversity or creativity, nor could we know what it feels like to long for something. Our longing for relationship or for community is only possible if we know what it means to be separate. And we have certainly known what that felt like over the last year and a half. So what an interesting dilemma. We need to be separate in order to be truly able to connect with someone, because connecting implies choice. Merging or fusing with another is not genuine closeness because we cannot tell where we stop and the other person begins. We lose our freedom of choice in the matter. It's as if we are once again infant and mother. When we lose ourself in a relationship, the boundaries have become blurred and we act from instinct and not from choice or reason. Something else we use don't like and don't admit. When we lose the ability to think and are driven solely by our feelings or our emotions, we revert to an earlier stage in our evolution. Not our personal evolution, but in evolution. It's what I talk about sometimes when I refer to our reptilian brain. There are two inner guidance systems that affect what is sometimes called this basic self, and one is made up of the automatic, emotional, or instinctual processes necessary to maintain life. Patterned emotional responses from early life become parts of this guidance system. So in the evolutionary process, the newer of these two inner guidance systems, which is organized mostly in the cerebral cortex, functions by process of thought, reason, judgment, logic. And it's most complex in we human beings. So in the evolutionary process, the last development is the first to go when we're under stress. So when emotions are high, our ability to respond rather than react is impaired. People who are able to stay connected while maintaining a sense of themselves as separate or different have more choice about which guidance system they are using. The scriptures are full of stories of people who struggle with their needs for separateness and closeness. That's why those stories are so endearing and last so long, whether we take them literally or not. Think about the characters you remember from some of those stories. Sometimes we, especially Unitarian Universalists, wonder how anyone could teach those horrible stories about the people with biblical values to our children. Well, we don't. We wait till they're old enough to understand. But people will always struggle with these strong emotions. The prodigal son, Cain and Abel. They are stories about basic human emotions, longings, and disappointments. Our lifelong pursuit of wholeness, of a self that is distinct, yet capable of being in relationship with others, is a struggle to discover the boundaries that allow us to be in right relationship with one another without being swallowed up. People ask me often if I insist on premarital counseling. Well, I do meet with people and talk to them a little bit, and I remember that when my husband and I were getting married, we had to go and speak with his Lutheran pastor. And I remembered something I never forgot when he said, you need to remember that marriage is not 50-50. And then he gave the balance, that it can be 70-30 or whatever. So whenever I was angry that things didn't seem fair, I would remember Pastor Halfley saying that to us. So I think there's some value in marital counseling. But for the most part, I think that once people decide they're going to get married, they're not going to listen to very much that I say. So I'm not sure that premarital counseling unless you get to say something that they might hear, that they're going to pay a lot of attention. I think I was lucky that I chose the right person to be married to. Brene Brown talks about good boundaries and developing a whole self. She describes a time of unraveling when you feel a desperate pull to live the life you want to live, not the one that you're supposed to live. So many of us are trying so hard to live the life we think we're supposed to live. And this unraveling, she says, is a time when you are challenged by the universe to let go of who you think you are supposed to be and embrace who you are. And these kinds of feelings come up when we are leaving home emotionally, which could be a marriage, a divorce, becoming a parent, recovery, moving, an empty nest, retiring, experiencing loss or trauma, working in a soul-sucking job, and I'm going to say enduring a pandemic. The goal is to be able to live our own unique identity without fear of being rejected or coerced. The work is ours, though. It's not our job to convince the other person of anything. Ultimately, it is for each of us to accept ourselves for who we are, for what we think, and what we believe. If each person in a family can learn to do that, then the true connection can take place, rather than coercion or giving up of self to maintain harmony. So this Thanksgiving, you may want to take on this challenge, because the best place to work on this is back at the dinner table with your family. If you can manage it there, then you can manage it other places. But until you can manage it there, it's likely you won't manage it very well in other places either. That reptilian brain will grab a hold of you. So this Thanksgiving, maybe you do want to take on that challenge, and be forewarned, though, you will have to breathe deeply and stay calm. Remember you love them, and know that this is the work of a lifetime. May it be so, and may you be with your family, loved ones, good friends, people you care about throughout this holiday season. We have certainly spent a lot of time separated and in isolation, and may that not be true for these holidays this year. My closing words are from a friend I haven't seen in a really long time, a religious educator, Leah Derlin Jones, lifelong Unitarian Universalist. For those who came before us, we offer gratitude and thanks. May their memories be a blessing. May we feel surrounded by their love as we go forth from this place. Let us be inspired by their courage, their wisdom, and their dreams. Let us honor them by doing the work of living boldly, loving mightily, and creating heaven on earth. Amen, and blessed be.
Sister.